first of all, I want to tell you, how many of you, this is your first TIC? Oh, welcome, awesome. So for those of you who are new or maybe even new to Heartland, if you could get on the internet, our wireless name is HAANet, and the password is education. So hopefully you can jump on the internet, and then the link to our agenda is on the table. So that top link at the top of that paper, there's a link to our agenda that will have links to our session proposals, our resources, and then our feedback form at the end of the day. Also, if you're new here, when you walk in the front door, there is a staff lounge to the left that has a coffee machine, as well as that's where if you want to, there's a vending machine and also a place for you to eat lunch if you want to stay here. And then further down and then to the left are the restrooms. So hopefully that helps you stay here today with us. This afternoon we will have 3 presenters. We will go until about 11:30, 12 o'clock, depending on how the sessions go, with some work time. But then we'll also have a work time in the afternoon as a collaboration time that you guys, this room is set aside for this afternoon as well. But if you want to spread out, there are other places in AEA that you guys can also work. So what we're going to do today, we thought we'd start off a little differently today, because since this is a new session, we wanted to have a little bit of a conversation about what is STEM. We know that some of our people in our districts are like, I want to do STEM. And usually what our job is to figure out what they mean by what do they mean when they want to do STEM. So we're going to have a short presentation about what is STEM. We're going to move into our 3 presentations for this afternoon or for the morning, and then we're going to end with a little bit of a demo of DefinedSTEM, which is a Heartland resource that we offer to all Heartland schools. So what is STEM? We're gonna pause there for a moment before I get into some definitions that I have found. We're gonna have just a conversation at your table about what do you think, or what does STEM mean to you. So we're gonna break for about 5 minutes to have a conversation. So I gather we have a lot of different people in the building, or in our classroom right now. We have, classroom teachers, media specialists, STEM teachers. So I want to gather about what we came up with in the conversations that we had at our table. So who wants to share out some of their thoughts that they had? Yes, Nicole. Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to add to that? Yes, Tyler.
We discussed posing a real-life authentic challenge to get skills from all those areas to solve it.
Yep. Yes.
We talked about science and engineering as being ways to explain what we see and solve problems, and then technology and math as the tools that we use to do that.
Okay.
None of them can stand alone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, we're going to go into a couple slides. I watched a webinar, and I watched it like maybe a month or so ago, but it actually was filmed in May. And so I have a link at the bottom to this webinar that I was watching. And I watch a lot of webinars, so I try to watch some. And I don't always find them very beneficial, because it's usually some corporate guy or woman in California or whatever. But there are a couple that I found that have been very helpful. And so this is one of the ones, the link at the bottom is one of the ones that I felt were really helpful. I know I probably emailed it to a few of you that I know are looking for something like that. But when I was watching this webinar, I did come across some really great things that I wanted to share with you today. And there's a couple things that I added to it as well. So the first thing that I've learned, the webinar I shared, is some bullet points about what STEM is. And I'm going to let you read these. So what is STEM? And I'm going to have you read that. And I think that one is pretty straightforward. I think everyone kind of mentioned that. We know that STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Some of us might add A for art, and some of us might add R for lots of different reasons. That one I found a few letters or a few words for. But I think we all agree that STEM is that curriculum based around those domains. But then what I also think is what Nicole also touched on is the interdisciplinary and applied approach. What makes STEM different is I know that we all have science classes, we all have math classes, some of us have engineering and some of us have technology classes in our buildings, but how often are they interdisciplinary? And I think that's what makes the STEM a little different than the others, because this is the one that's using them, all of them, and it's applying them to our learning. The last one is what is STEM? I'll let you read that one as well. So when we think about this part of the definition and what Nicole and Tyler both said, it brings in that real world experiences along with those interdisciplinary. So we start looking at our learning as more of a more complex concept instead of a math thing, a science thing, a technology, and engineering. It's all one encompassing thing that helps solve real world problems. The next one I have is, there's one more bullet point there. That's something also very important that we need to remember, especially when our plates are already really full. You know, some people I really like this weather unit, so I'm going to do this weather unit, and then for a week I'm going to do a STEM activity that goes with the weather unit that I've always done. Well, that sometimes that takes time out of our day, and so what you have to think about, if we are choosing to do STEM, what are we choosing not to do? So we need to think about what's the value of our day and what's the value of the time spent on STEM versus something else that we're teaching. So the next thing is, I just found this from, oh my gosh, I just lost it. Laura Fleming just shared this. She writes for Mackin Books, but she had just shared this poster with us. Just this week she put together. That kind of was an interesting thing that I thought I'd share. What is STEM? What it's not? And so you can click on that poster with that link there. Actually, I'll give you these slides towards the end. There is a link to the slides at the bottom because my Defined STEM is after this. But there's a link to the poster, what it is and what it isn't. The last thing, and I'm going to have you guys read, which, depending on your grade level, what it means. But this came from the same webinar that I was watching, this linked at the bottom. What does STEM look like, and what's in elementary, middle school, and high school? So if you want to take a look at your grade level and kind of have a conversation at your table about what this means for your classroom. I know that was a very, very short 15 minutes introduction, but I kind of wanted to get us all a little bit on the same page, but then also kind of give you something to think about as you're watching the presentations and as you go back to your buildings and you have those conversations with administrators, other teachers about what does it really mean to integrate STEM. But what we are going to move on to is a quick demo of DefinedSTEM. How many of you have used DefinedSTEM yet before? A couple of you? Awesome. DefinedSTEM is a free resource that Heartland provides to all their educators. Actually, there's 3 AEAs that offer it in the state of Iowa, and I'm not going to get them all right, so I'm not even going to tell you which ones they are. But if you are in the room, you have access to it, because I made sure that everyone even if those of you on Zoom, I also made sure that you guys have access to it. And so you all should have access to it. I said that a lot. And so what you have to do to access DefinedSTEM is go to DefinedSTEM.com, and there's a link at the bottom of this slide, but then also you can just search DefinedSTEM. And then you need to log in using Google. So do not put your username and password in there. It's just you're gonna have to keep clicking, and it's gonna keep asking you, are you sure you want to do Google? And then it's gonna ask you what Google account. So go in with your school Google account. So as you're logging in, what I want to share with you, the most important thing about any of these curriculum websites that we offer, this one in particular is not to be seen as a full course meal. It's supposed to be seen as an a la carte. So when we look at the buffets, sometimes we go to China Buffet where we can get anything we want. We can get ribs and chicken, or even like Pizza Ranch. You can get all sorts of different kinds of things depending on what you want. That's the kind of idea I want you to think about when we go through DefinedSTEM. You have to know what your students, what you are comfortable teaching, what you have to teach, your content, your environment, your students, and everything like that. We have to think about those things as we think about the instruction that we're giving them. So when it's not a full course meal. It's not something that you're going to go into a lesson and you're going to think, okay, I need to do this whole thing with all my students, because that is not what this website is designed to do. It is designed to be a la carte. You pick and choose what you think your students need. So is there such thing as a perfect lesson? So these instructional designers are people who, just like you and I, who are creating these lessons that tie to their students, their lens, their expertise. But we need to remember that they are instructional designers. They're not the teachers of your classroom. And so that's what I want you to make sure that you realize, that some of these things are not going to be the perfect lesson because they don't know your students, they don't know where you live, they don't know the environment you work in, and then your passions and desires. So that's what I want you to think about when we look at this a la carte resource called DefinedSTEM. So this is your home page. What the biggest thing I enjoy, the first thing I look at is the PD Center. Across the top, you're going to see there's a tab that says PD Center. If you click on that, that's going to give you all sorts of different options for training. But there's one that's called integration strategies, or using it in your classroom. I think it might have changed. One of those, that is one of the nicest things about this website, is there's all different ways to use it. You can use it as a communicating unit, you can use it to enhance, and you can use it more as a personalized learning where students get to choose the project that they're doing. But it tells you it explains different ways to use DefinedSTEM. You can use it in a flipped classroom as a summative assessment. Those are different ways to use it. There's videos to go with it. So if you haven't used it before, that's something that I would definitely stop there and say, okay, how are some ways that I could use it in my classroom? And that's going to give you a little bit better, more personalized learning for you. Because I know that we have a very wide range of classes and teachers here. The next one, the other thing I want to point out is over on the top left, you have performance tasks. The way that this website is set up is that it provides activities for students to do pre-K-12 that are tied to the core. And so by looking through, there's different ways that this database is set up, but on the top in the blue box, it's set up by performance tasks. So it's going to look at the different projects and tasks for each of those grades. The next one below that is the curriculum unit. So if you want to look by curriculum, by the unit, then you can go to the green one. But if you go by this is the performance tasks, you can search by grade. Now one of the suggestions I give you, that if you teach 5th grade, to look at 4th and 6th, because it's going to give you a wider range of activities. But believe me though, there's definitely not there's definitely lots of activities for every grade. But I would look at both of them. Now, we just hope that next year the teacher chooses a different one. But so if you do teach 4th grade and then all of a sudden you have them in 5th grade, hopefully it's not the same one. But there are different performance tasks for each one of these. So if I look under 5th grade, across the top then you'll see different subjects. So if I want to focus on science, or I want to focus on social studies, which those are the up-to-date, so those are the newest social studies standards that this resource is using. So I searched by grade, all subjects. These are the different activities then that you can choose from. The other way that you can look at it is the curriculum unit suggestions. And this is what it looks like by curriculum unit. So I had a teacher say, hey, I want to do something in my classroom. And I said, well, what's units coming up? And he said volume. So I was able to go through and find volume and find out, okay, this is the unit that touches on this standard. So this is a different way of looking at DefinedSTEM, because it looks at what standards are coming up, and then it tells you what standard or what project uses that standard. The one caveat on that, though, I talked to our science consultant, one of our science consultants, and he said, if you're looking at measurement and data and you do a trip to the DC and they choose a project that doesn't have anything to do with data, or you don't ask the students to collect any data, then are they going to hit that standard? No. So these are so wide open that you do, if you are trying to be very specific on a standard that you want to teach, you need to make sure that that's something that you're asking the students to do. So there's a project. What this says that in the trip to DC, in that unit, there is a project the students can choose that touches on that standard. So a student could choose a different project and not touch on that standard. So we want to make sure that if you're using it to specify exactly what core standards you're using, then you make sure that the students are hitting on that standard. But that is why a lot of people like it, because it definitely is one of those resources that definitely is outside the box and gets students to be really creative and gives them a lot of it has the potential to give students a lot of voice and choice of their learning. The other thing, so this is one of the activities, and actually this is the one activity that I've done. I was kind of excited to see it was on the front page now. The backpack design in 3rd grade. I had to teach this class. I taught a class on DefinedSTEM this summer, and so this is the one that I had them do because I was on Twitter, and one of the teachers were like, this is the best activity. My students loved it, so I was like, oh, all right, well, I'll do it. So I did this with a bunch of teachers, and they're like, why didn't we do more of those? Well, the class wasn't on DefinedSTEM. It was on Heartland Online Resources, so I couldn't, spend 2 days on DefinedSTEM. But the part that we did spend on this, that was definitely the highest engagement and the positive feedback. But if I click on the backpack design, actually, this is not the backpack design. This is another one, but this is how it's set up. So across the top, you're going to see preview, customize, and assign. So this is what you're previewing. You're previewing that entire buffet, all of the things that are being offered for this performance task. And then next you'll see customize. So you can choose, okay, I only want my students to get this, this, and this. So I'm going to customize it. Here's the plate I want to give my students. So if you want to go to the buffet and you want to choose your plate and you want to say, okay, students, this is your plate that I want you to do, that's customize. And then assign. There's all sorts of different ways that you can assign this. Across on the left then, that is how you go through the performance task. You set the stage, explore the background. There's videos that actually explain all sorts of different concepts. There's a video on volume. There's a video on all the different things that they need to know for that unit, so students could go in there and have a flip lesson. Do the research and then create the product. So I'm actually going to jump in to DefinedSTEM and show you what this looks like, because they also follow what's called the GRASP model. And I'm going to show you what that is. Explore the background. Here's the GRASP model. And what it talks about is the goal, the role, audience, situation, and products. So the big idea, that usually gives you a video and some questions to ask your kids before and after the video. What's the goal of this performance task? What's your role? So what are you going to do as a student in that? Who's your audience? What's the situation? And then the products are the biggest thing. After they go through all of these, there's also that explains to you how to do each one of them if you want, and there's questions to go with it. But down here is the biggest component of this website, because what it allows students to do is choose their product. How do they want to share how they learn this information? And so they have created these products to go with each one of these performance tasks that have students choose how they're going to show that they know the content. So these are, for this example, is wildlife biologist, endangered species, and exponential decay. Yep. This one is, they could either do a technical report, they could do a map, they could do a digital and oral presentation, they could do a training module. All of these are different for every performance task. Also, every one of these has a rubric. So I know when I work with teachers and they're like, yeah, I want to do that, but I'm used to having a presentation and here's my rubric and everyone gets graded the same. Well, some teachers are ready to move on from that, and so they really like the idea of these rubrics already created for each one of these products. Now, these rubrics are not student language, though, but you can download in PDF and Word, and so you can change the words, but at least they are created for you, so you don't have to do all the work. And also, there's standards tied to each one of these products. So you're going to see if I click over here, the rubrics, this is how they look. So they're not that eye appealing, but at least they're done. And then over here is standards. So all of these standards, if the student does this product, these are all the standards that it would meet. I mean, speaking, listening, next generation standards, math, science. So that you can see how they all tie into this, to these products. Down here, do the research. Here is where you get the reading component. So these are all Lexile. They are all not just Lexile levels, but there's all different. There's what am I saying? They're all scaffold, I guess. So you can say, okay, I want the student to do this project, and these are the reading ones. These are the reading assignments that I want that student to do. But they also have literacy writing components. So here's the reading, here's how I want you to, they do a literary response, I guess is what it is. So there's a response part to this reading component as well. But for this project, it's for third graders, but yet they are still offering some harder text to go with it. And so this one might, so that is all the reading. So if I click on one of these, it's going to open right in the page. I can read it. These are just the articles that they've provided, so I don't have students searching all over the internet. There are videos to go with it, and then here are the literacy tasks. So here they have to read this and respond to the questions, and I can assign that through DefinedSTEM, or I can assign it through Google Classroom. Create the product then. These are the different products again that we had looked at before. When I go to, so I can give them the entire buffet if I want to. I want to say, here are all the materials. I would not do that for the first time. I would say I would keep it very simple, like, okay, we're going to do this one task, we're going to do this one reading, we're going to do this one project, and then maybe as the year goes on, if I done a couple more, I could give them options, but I think the first time I do it, I would probably just give them a very limited menu, because otherwise it can be very overwhelming. I think for teachers it's very overwhelming as well, because there's just so much to offer in this website. When you decide to say, okay, yes, I want to choose this project, I want to customize it, and then you go over to assign, and these are all the different ways that you can assign it. When you look at student view, it actually just comes up as a, like they signed in using their Google account. So they have access to everything that you want them to have access to, depending on how you customize it. But you can also share a link. And so I know that some people have done this is the share the link. Some people you can just get it done in a PDF, and you can share the PDF with people if you want to add it to your plan book. I know that like Megan had shared, or someone had shared plan book. Oh, Renee did. When I sent it as a link, so this is the DefinedSTEM Backpack Challenge. So link to task. This went straight to a Google Doc, and then I was able to set up those questions, so they were answering the questions, and then I chose down here were the tasks that they could choose from. So what we're going to give you a chance to do is take a look at DefinedSTEM, and then what I want you to look through what they have to offer for your grade, what they have to offer as the standards that are the performance tasks that have to go with them. We have all had experience with DefinedSTEM, at least at different levels of our experience, so we can help you do that as well. I do have teachers that are using this. I know a fourth grade teacher I shared with this just a couple months ago, and she actually, unfortunately, I wanted her to come and share how she's using it in her classroom, because I think it's one thing for us to share it, but that's another for having, to have teachers be able to share how they're using it in the classroom. But they have done all of their activities, their whole science now in this fourth grade classroom at Ankeny. fifth grade, have all been using DefinedSTEM. So they did actually a zookeeper one. So they Skyped with the lady from the Blank Park Zoo. They had to create, actually, no, I think it was an aquarium. It was they had to design an aquarium. So they Skyped with one of the zookeepers here at Blank Park Zoo to get that one started. But they also then had parents. She said that they had shared one of these projects or one of these performance tasks, and they got to choose one in the classroom, but then some of them went home and created stuff all on their own without even her asking for it. And they came back, and this one kid, they did one on habitats, and he had designed this igloo and like brought it back to the class. Like, it was not expected, not even asked, but he wanted to go home and see the things and use the things that he had at home. They had also had for this the aquarium one, she had kids going and buying things off eBay, going at Walmart and buying things to create their aquariums, which was not asked. Like, that's what their other thing was, is trying to use the 3D printer to create some of these things to then put in their aquarium. So she said it's kind of blown out of the water. She did ask parents for some resources. So if they needed cardboard, they needed some paper or whatever, she does have a list of things that she sent out to parents now that says, hey, if you have any of this around the house, like, we kind of need this for an upcoming project. So she has had a lot of parent involvement because they are so excited about using these things, and the parents want her to continue. So the parents are like, yeah, we'll pretty much, give you whatever you need to continue doing this. But they're not ones that you need a lot of materials for, but the kids are choosing. They're going home to see what they could use. So